Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Creative Pois-On, to our show. Today, we are here with some fantastic, amazing artists that contributed to our special #Creativity Will Save Us Pride Month special episode that was produced and distributed last week before Sunday. Of course, was Pride Day in New York City. And we are here to explore with them a little bit of how they felt in celebrating Pride during this very difficult, unprecedented times of the COVID-19, and then explore a little bit of how creativity has saved them during the lockdown and probably made them feeling like developing new models, new ways to possibly and reconstruct and rebuild their own businesses for the future. And so I'm gonna present to you our protagonists today. So we have singer-songwriter Irene Mastrangeli. Welcome, Irene, to our Creative Pois-On show.
Thank you.
And then we have Robert Dreemeyer, an actor, comedian, and broader producer, and also the host of a very fun and entertaining show, Broadway Barfly. That's a very cool, brilliant example how he utilized his creativity during this lockdown. And then we're going to go into the details of this very entertaining show with Rob later. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And then we have David James Parr, who is a writer, playwright, and also the editor of the series #Creativity Will Save Us, and also my partner and husband. And we are he's broadcasting 6 feet apart, social distancing, and we are here. And of course, Daniela Pavan, who is the artistic director of Creative Pois-On, and she will conduct this interview with me. And I am Tommaso Cartia, and I am the editor-in-chief of Creative Pois-On. So before getting into the conversation, I would like to play for our audience, for everybody, a little teaser of our Creativity Will Save Us Pride Month episode featuring these wonderful artists. Ready, set, imagine.
When you go back to your mistakes, feel the death is the only way to save your fragile consciousness. Think about your actions and consequences. You're not the only one to hurry to make this change. Be free, yeah. You need to fall down. You need to come out. You need to fall down into your crown. That little miracle, faith within your hands. Oh, oh, oh. Faith within your hands. Oh, oh, oh. Faith within your hands. Oh, oh, oh. Faith within your hands. Oh, oh, oh.
Yeah, congratulations, everybody. It's a wonderful episode. So let's start our interview. I would like to start with singer-songwriter Irene Mastrangeli. Welcome, Irene. And so my question to you would be like, you sent a beautiful contribution to our video where you are, exploring a little bit of how creativity saved you during this very harsh lockdown. And also you are singing a song called "We Are Treasures," which is part of your new upcoming album, or the album is already out, right?
No, only 2 singles are out.
Only 2 singles are out. So how did you feel during this lockdown? How did you utilize your creativity during this lockdown? And what was your feeling of celebrating Pride this year?
Well, first of all, I really love this idea of exploring creativity during the lockdown. I think is genius because I believe it's been one of the most creative times for a lot of people, not just for me. Also talking to friends, I'm seeing how this time of this kind of pause and reset has allowed a lot of people to either find creativity or just explore their creativity further. And for me, I have to say, I've been feeling guilty saying it, and I need to stop feeling guilty because it's what it is. It's been actually a great time. Like
Why did you feel guilty?
I feel guilty because it's kind of like tragic, when
Right.
all the people died, and economically. I mean, it's at the beginning I was like, of course, heartbroken. I was here, my family, our families in Italy, not being able to be with them. It was really difficult. And then something kicked in where I found that a lot of people live in New York, I think, shared the same experience. I was completely drained before the lockdown. Like I was just my skin tone was changed, like I feel more alive. I was very drained by my life, running around, and the fact that I could rest more. My time has been way more nurturing, like more humane, and as a pace. I take walks every day. I just kind of like spent more quality time with myself, and that has fueled my creativity. I actually had, a writer's block that I was dealing with, and the artist way. I've been working the artist way. I've been doing all this work, and then the lockdown started, and I started writing then. Because of course, also the drama of it,
Right.
Of course, for an artist is a source of inspiration.
Sure.
Like anything that happens,
right,
in our lives. So, and also, so it's been such a, a lot of people were like, I was talking to, like, oh, how are you? Oh, the same. My day's the same, and it is the same, but it's not.
right.
And I'm noticing way more, my plants in my apartment, the trees, the colors of the flowers outside, like really noticing the transition between winter and spring, and now from spring to summer.
Right.
And that is such a gift, be more present in life.
Right. So how did you feel like as LGBTQ representative of spending and celebrating Pride Month during this very, very difficult time, and specifically with everything that's going on in the United States right now, which is not just the pandemic, but we've experienced the Black Lives Matter movement, and they're kind of like blending together this year, these two sentiments of keep on fighting for our rights, civil rights, whether they are for Black people or for homosexuals or for the full spectrum of us as human beings. And you also sing a beautiful song, which is called We Are Treasures, that I love this title. So what did you put into this song, and how did you feel?
Well, it's been an interesting, really powerful time. And this song, actually, it's the second single of the album, and I was not going to release it now. I was going to wait. But because of what was happening, I decided to release this song. This idea of We Are Treasures for me is like, the preciousness of every single human, life, and the preciousness of our gifts, and that our gifts are necessary to contribute to the evolution of humanity. And also for me, when COVID started, also treasuring, life, the fact that I'm alive, that we're alive. So if we are alive, to celebrate it. And then, in terms of gay pride and Black Lives Matter, it's been like, I don't even know how to talk about it. Like on June 12th, when, Trump started, redefine what sexual discrimination is at the level of healthcare, that was June 12th, the anniversary of Pulse. And for me, Pulse, it was a heart-shattering. I mean, like all the shootings, but that one was just so I don't know, out of control for me. And that's when I wrote Love Shine, which is the title track of the song.
Of your album.
So
Yeah.
I felt really close to everything that's been happening. And I felt, instead of sort of shutting down, I felt like, okay, now I need to really work. Now I need to get out there and allow these songs, like the work I do, because that's what I do. I write songs. So
Right.
to allow these songs to somehow contribute and help. And actually I wrote my newest song is called The Time Has Come.
Mm-hmm.
And it started when the protests started,
Right.
and because of the helicopters, whatever, it was this thing that I couldn't stand, this oppression that was
Right.
literally, I felt it physically. And that's when I started writing about, this bigger oppression, and that we're finally addressing, I feel, in a more radical way.
Right. So there's a militant element to your artistry, like a proactive element to it.
And what? Sorry, couldn't hear.
A proactive element to your artistry. Yeah.
Yes, and it's interesting because in a time of isolation, it's actually where I found this more active voice.
These more active ways.
Yeah.
Right, which is very interesting. So we're moving to the world of theater with Robert Dreemeyer. As we were saying before, you're an actor, you're a comedian, and a Broadway producer, and also you are the host of this very entertaining format called Broadway Barfly. So you entertain all of us during this lockdown, preparing cocktails and also, with wit and funning, but also giving historical context of what, on Broadway, because basically each one of your cocktails was inspired by a Broadway show. And in the case of #Creativity Will Save Us, you proposed a cocktail inspired to the wonderful Judy Garland, and iconic, of course, also for the if we think about the Stonewall O'Neill and the riots back then. So there's this kind of like synchronicity in between the death of Judy Garland and the riots back in time. So what can you tell us about how this Broadway Fly, how you utilized your creativity, and how did you feel in celebrating Pride and from remote this year?
Well, I mean, those are two different things. I do wear all those titles. I am an actor turned stand-up comic turned producer. But as it relates to all of this, I also have a career. I've worked in Wall Street investment banks for 20 years. So the reason I say that is because kind of what Irina was saying, I felt a little guilty. I wasn't unemployed. I just continued working from home. And the weekend before I knew that we were not going to be able to go into the office, I thought, well, I don't know how long this is going to last. I'm not crazy about working from home. I'm never going to escape it. I have to have something to do. I have to find something. So, boy, Creativity Will Save Us is a perfect hashtag for my situation. I thought, we don't know when this is going to end. I'm either going to come out on the other end of this having gone through it, or somebody's going to have to wheel me out in a wheelbarrow because I'll have gone completely nuts. And so that's how this all came about. It's an idea I had been sort of mulling over it, that weekend before the Monday I was going to work from home. I said, you know what, let's just give it a try. And so I've done it now for 16 weeks. As far as putting it out there for Pride, when you all asked if I would participate, I was thrilled to. And it just was a little bit of an inspiration. I thought, oh, well, Judy Garland did have not a Broadway career per se, but she did these concerts on Broadway that really relaunched her career. And it did, as I explained in the video, coincide. It wasn't really correlated in any way, but it did coincide with the Stonewall uprising. And there is such thing as a rainbow cocktail. So it was kind of a lot of synchronicity, to put all that together. And, it doesn't have an agenda. I mean, as a stand-up, I know you were talking about political stuff. during the George Bush years, I did a lot of stand-up. So my creativity at that time was writing political material. I did a show called Laughing Liberally. I mean, David, you and I go back long enough to remember when I did those things. And so I wrote a blog.
David and Robert, just for the audience to know, they work together as well.
Yeah. So, yeah. And we go back a long time. So I not to bring that up, but but that was a creativity at a different time. And I still occasionally do stand-up, but I found it very hard to be funny in this time of Donald Trump. I don't laugh about it. I think it's far more serious than it was in the days of George W. Bush. He was a buffoon, but he never felt dangerous.
Right.
This feels dangerous. This feels like every day with every news headline, we are one step closer to falling off of some ledge. And so the nice thing that I find about the Broadway Barfly approach to this is that it's not topical. It's maybe one of the few times I've ever tried to do something that didn't have a message to it, but it celebrates things that I enjoy. And also the idea of the cocktail, it's a communal thing, you know. What's better than sitting down and having a drink with someone and just hashing out some topic or other, you know? And so that's you know, that's where all this came from, just a way to connect, you know, about things that I know people who I know enjoy. I've not put this out in the world in any large way. It's just on my personal Facebook, Instagram pages. So it's a very small audience, though that may change in time. And so it was a way to connect. Yeah. Right. I hope that answers your questions.
Absolutely, yes. I think that also emotionally you touch upon like a very a subject that we can all relate to, which is like we've all been missing, you know, getting around with friends and just have, you know, the fun to just share moments and kind of a cocktail. And I think that one of the goals of entertainment, besides being such you know, enormous business, and it's also like pure fun, pure entertainment, which is uplifting, and what people, that's the reason why people want to go to the theaters, want to go to bars, venues, and so that part of our essence as human beings should not be, we can't forget about it. We can't just press delete on that, because it's an important part of our life. So I think that
I have to say that in right before this Pride video that, you know, we sort of did for both what I do and for this video, the one before I did was about a show called Finian's Rainbow. And I had made a long list of drinks and cocktails and sort of shook my trivia to figure out what might be a good idea. And I'd been sitting on this mint julep that's mentioned in Finian's Rainbow for a long time, because it has a very racial context. And I had to sort of wrestle, like, how do I do this? Do I want to put this out there in talk about a show that's, you know, very much socially out of step with today's racial climate? Will doing a little video about that trivialize it in some way, even though we're talking about a show that took place in 1947? And that was about as close as I got to really, you know, having to think about how is this going to be perceived by people watching it? Because the last thing I want to do is trivialize something like that with a drink and a, you know, off the cuff story. But in that instance, the writers of the show, Yip Harburg, who was a lyricist, was a very politically active and socially committed person, just in a different time. And so once I decided, well, that's the framework. Let's talk about how this fit into a different time. And even though the product is out of step with today, they were very much ahead of their time 60, 70 years ago. So there's that. Yeah,
but also I think like in this moment in time, if we think about the storylines of history, there are some very interesting parallels when something like as huge as a global pandemic happens, and I revisit shows, also revisit history is a way also to understand how to act during something that we never expected coming. So, like for example, and through this, I want to talk with David about what he presented on our Creativity Will Save Us show, but also like he's releasing a video that is excerpts from his play entitled Slepentico. And in the specific segment that we can see on Creativity Will Save Us, we have these two beautiful actors, Puya Moseni and Sebastian Lacause, and they play a transgender woman and a gay guy. And the show, Slepentico, is, I could say, and then of course David will be more specific about it, but it has this kind of like a nostalgia to it, like thinking about a moment in time where homosexuals started, be social. So it talks about specifically when the baths were the social venue for people who were coming out for the first time in a world that wasn't accepting them at all. And so you see these interactions that are naturally, if you want to think back, they were naturally locked down in a way, them being gay and being locked into their houses, into the prison of the social constrictions. And so like to think about that world and the parallels that we experience today, both artistically but also socially and politically, I think it's very interesting. But I want to give David, of course, voice to explain to us his idea about Slepentico and how it does relate to today's world.
Okay, that's kind of a loaded introduction, but
well,
I can do it. Slepentico is a play about storytelling in general. And the idea was to have all of these stories that people had kept inside finally revealed directly to an audience. So it's stories told in isolation, but connecting with a voyeur or someone who is watching them. So that was the idea behind the play. So it's something that easily translates to what we're going through now. All the characters are essentially trapped kind of in the past, even though they are presenting the stories now. And it's about a generation that came out after AIDS, but before PrEP and before all these social dating apps. So it was very interesting that bathhouses were a very social place to meet. And then they sort of evolved into sex clubs. And then in the 80s with AIDS and all of that, they started to take on this sort of dirtier, seedier vibe. And then a lot of them closed down. And were replaced by social media sites like Manhunt and Grindr and all these other places where people now meet and sort of connect without actually connecting. So it's interesting to see there's always this desire to connect. The places change, but the desire doesn't.
The desire is still there.
Yeah.
And also we want to mention the fact that this Slepentico was also selected by Pride Plays, which is a beautiful project co-produced by actor Mako Yuri. And so like, congratulations, David, for that. And so that you want to tell us more about like your creativity and how did you feel during this lockdown? What did you work on?
Yeah, going to what Irena said earlier, initially I thought, wow, I also have a day job too, and I was lucky enough to keep that. So I was still working, but I also had all this freer time to work on stuff. And I think a lot of creativity is about escape. So it's who doesn't want to escape what's happening right now? Yeah. So I had all these ideas come to me, and then I had friends who were texting me and emailing me and saying, I bet you're writing something great about what's happening now. And I was thinking, I don't really want to write about what's happening. Like, who's going to want to see this eventually? And then I went up to the rooftop one evening, and this was in late April, and this is in New York City, which at that time was the kind of the epicenter.
Right.
And it was close to 7:00, and I heard an ice cream truck, that annoying song that seems to play everywhere all summer. And then I heard ambulance sirens at the same time. And then at 7:00, there was the applause for the city's essential workers. And it was this kind of symphony of what was happening. And I thought, this is the kind of moment that I think would be interesting to try to eventually portray in something. So that's how creativity's been bubbling too. I also think there's a difference between forced isolation and then isolation as an artist that you seek out. I mean, a lot of artists, their best stuff is born from relaxation and being alone and just thinking about stuff. But when it's forced upon you, it's kind of a different thing. So you feel sort of resentful, and you need the interaction, or at least I do. I need interaction with other people and in public venues to keep in touch with the rhythms of how people speak and interact. And so it's hard to do in a vacuum. So it's interesting paradox, I guess.
Thank you so much. I love that. Okay, so we're moving toward to now, like how creativity can really help us rebuilding our businesses. And so I leave the floor to Daniela Pavan.
Thank you. I'm really honored to be with all of you today. And I have a couple of questions I would like to put on the table for all of us to think of and converse. So creativity is the usage of imagination to create something, to build something new. And you are all creative by nature, and you are all artists by nature. And as you said earlier, creativity has somehow no agenda. So, as you said, you used a lot of creativity during this lockdown. And this is a very interesting point that I would like to put on the table to discuss with you about those people who actually are think they're not creative, but they are inside. They just need to learn how to re-explore that side. So how do you think people should, let's say, get back their creative confidence or get back to their creative side? And on the other hand, I would like to explore together how you think creativity will really save us from now on, in terms of how do you think that it will help you rebuild or at least support your industry in the next months? Who want to start?
I can start.
Please.
As you were speaking, I just remember the words of a friend of mine who is a principal in a private lower school, elementary school, I think it's called.
Yes.
So she remembered these grandmother's words, and she was reporting to me the interaction between this grandmother and the child saying, "Grandma, I'm so bored." And she's like, "Right? I'm so happy you're bored, because that's when you get creative, So this is exactly what's happening to us, a lot of people are bored, and I believe, for me, a lot of creativity has come from boredom. I don't know what to do. Let me go to the piano, and something comes, And so one way for me to connect with one's creativity, I often think of people who are not necessarily don't have a creative outlet. More we think of creativity as art, right? But I really like to not associate the word creativity with art, because creativity,
I agree with you.
Everywhere, is in marketing, is in building things, we are creations ourselves. We are born from creation, and so creativity is. And so one thing that I believe is really in the boredom, not to distract oneself. If you start drinking or drugging or smoking yourself to death, or just kind of video gaming all day, watching movies from morning to, there's no chance creativity is gonna come through. So it's kind of let the boredom be just be there, with it, and really feel the discomfort. You know what I mean? all that comes up, and that's when an idea comes, something comes like, and for me, creativity songs, I always say, they come to me. I often am like, how did this come about? Like, I don't know how to write this. I really don't know how to write my songs. They just come through. So I need to be available for the songs to come through.
That's a very interesting point, and actually connects very well also with the philosophy that is behind Creative Pois-On, because we, and our podcast also, because we try to connect the dots between the world of creatives and the world, let's say, of people who believe they're not, and we're trying to actually make everybody understand that creativity is in us, is within all of us in a different way. And what you just said is really makes this point in a very strong way. And I think too that somehow probably when you're bored or when you're scared also, sometimes creativity will come up even stronger, even when you think you don't have that creative spark. And I agree also that creativity is in every thing that we can all do. Is, I mean, usually people refer it to art, but it's about building something. It's about sharing emotions also. And you as artists actually do that. And somehow I believe that you can be considered like as mentors in terms of how to use the creative side that we all have and don't know how to explore. So do you guys have anything else to add about how you think people should explore that creative side, and also how creativity will save us in the next months?
Well, kind of building off of what she was saying, I don't think I mean, at least I can't sit down and specifically write about a certain topic like coronavirus or racism. And I think a lot of artists can't just sit down and do it. But I think what happens is, as you're aware of these things around you, the ideas do kind of flow to you and the creativity comes. So you just have to don't pressure yourself to write something about what's happening now just to be relevant. You should just let the ideas evolve inside of you.
Yeah.
And in terms of theater, I mean, this is something that Rob might be able to speak about as well. But in terms of, Broadway is closed for right now through January. And it's an industry that's so built on a tourist market nowadays with these big, Disney-fied shows. So what's going to happen when theaters do reopen? Are the tourists going to come back? Are they going to go by the same model with these big budget, huge productions that aren't, in my opinion, all that original? They're based on either revivals or movies or things that have already happened. Or is there going to be a creative renaissance, kind of like there was in the 30s and 40s, when there were, hundreds of new shows opening every week? Because the voices are out there. I just don't think they're represented. I know that's a big leap to make, but it'll be something to watch, I think.
Yes, I think so too. And I hope that somehow also the model will actually slightly change. And that would be amazing. Also to give voice to all the talented artists that deserve that. So that would be great. And I actually can't wait to get back to theater, to be honest with you.
Me too.
I love that we can all see each other on a screen, but this whole social distancing situation, and also the fact that, I can, and everybody, can't enjoy being on a theater and watch a play, or being physically at a concert and listen and watch the artist. All of this is kind of driving me crazy right now, because those are, experiences that I love. And I hope, that this will somehow not get back to normal, because I don't even know what normal is anymore, but find a new way to allow us to enjoy these experiences. So, Rob, what do you think?
Oh, boy, I got a lot to say about all of that. I mean, if we're talking about theater in general, and I am a producer as well. I've been both a producer in a lead sense, having developed things from its origins up to an off-Broadway level of production commercially. And I've also, with my producing partner, have raised money for Broadway shows and other off-Broadway shows. So I have a whole bunch of different perspectives about the theater business, but I'm going to be very careful how I say this. I don't know who's watching, but we really don't know right now, in my opinion, what sort of damage the business has sustained.
Sure.
And it's not just because of the coronavirus, and it's not just because of this Black Lives Matter. I mean, that's a whole different thing, that artists of color are speaking up in a new and different way, and rightfully so. And while everything is stopped, there's a good opportunity to bring these things up. There have been some very explosive sort of pieces written recently, not circulating in big, New York Times sort of forums, but in places where theater people read. And it's not going to change. I don't know if it was TDF or the Broadway League started circulating these memes a few months ago. It's only intermission. We're only at intermission. And my opinion to that was always, well, you may be at intermission, but it's burnt to the ground. You're going to come back after intermission, and nothing is going to be there the way you thought it was. Because there are shows that are not going to reopen, no matter how hopeful they are. That's just the reality of it. There are shows that may reopen, but are going to have a very hard time finding a new audience, because their audience is so tourist heavy.
Yes.
We don't know when the tourists are coming back. We don't know when the capital, when are people going, not only when are people going to be buying tickets and feel comfortable spending that money to buy a premium ticket to see a Broadway show, when are people going to feel okay making a substantial investment in those shows, or substantial donations to the regional theaters and the institutional theaters that are not-for-profits? And so nobody knows what the answers to that are going to be. And I don't know that anybody's really been able to assess that damage. And so I think anybody who is approaching this as all of a sudden intermission will be over and everything's going to start again, I think is going to be really disappointed. I don't see that happening. I think it's going to be something that needs to rise from the ashes. It will, theater has been around since the ancient Greeks. It's not going away.
Yes.
So there's no fear of that, but it's going to look very different. And I mean, I guess there are more to be said about that if that's what you wanted to talk about, but it will take, creativity to figure out how to make stuff work again. But I think there's going to be a reassessment of what an audience wants to see.
Yeah.
What an audience who's ready to spend their money wants to see. And I don't like the fact that we pick and choose like who we feel needs to be heard. But that's kind of what a producer does, for better or worse. They choose. A producer does two things, basically. They choose what they're going to produce, and then they decide when the show closes. Everything else in between is sort of delegated to all sort of other people. So those people who make those decisions of what are we going to produce, whose voices, whose stories are we going to share, are in a lot of power, whether they intend to be or not. Their decisions set the trends. I don't know what else to say about that, really. I'll let someone else talk.
Yeah, Well, I would say hashtag creativity will.
It should and it will.
Yes.
But I mean, in the creativity sense, in the bigger picture, I do think people make a mistake by assuming creativity somehow equals art, that creativity equals music or theater or literature or something. Creativity can be just how you decide to rearrange your closet, you know? A few weeks ago, when I had nothing else to do, I rearranged how I kept things in the kitchen. And I thought, oh God, why hadn't I thought about that before? I have so much more space.
Yeah.
Creativity, you know, it will save me a lot of headache going forward.
Right.
Yes, and time as well.
Yeah. Well, so, you know, people who automatically assume that creativity is somehow linked with art, I think are shortchanging themselves.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what me and Daniela are trying to convey.
How you choose to approach.
Yeah.
How you choose to solve the problem.
Exactly. The problem solving is part of what an asset that it's in our creativity mind. So that's what we would be needing to do when we're going to rebuild our businesses. Like, I wanted to go and understand, like, for each one of you, what's up next? Like, what are your projects? And how do you see them? Are you releasing something new, theater-wise, music-wise?
Well, you know, as Robert was saying, we really don't know. It's kind of like a day-at-a-time situation. I also wanted to say that in a way, this is I feel like a lot of structures that are coming down that are probably worked up to a certain point. So I'm actually curious to see how new structures will be built, you know, in terms of Broadway, and like a lot of, you know, economic systems are falling apart. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. But you know, for me, like I think music, that's been, you know, now digital for quite a bit of time, that continues to be, you know, like I will continue to release the singles, you know, of this new album, you know, Spotify, all the digital platforms. There have been issues with music videos. Haven't been able to make, you know, music videos, although people are getting very creative and doing them, you know, at home. And in terms of, you know, the big thing, for example, for music is performing, right? So clubs, a lot of artists who are, you know, I'm not really a big touring artist, so for me it was not a huge change. You know, I also have a day job. I teach, and I've been able to transfer that, you know, online pretty smoothly. But I think, you know, for the big changes for like big names, because the arenas are definitely not going to open anytime soon, have that many people together. Yeah. So like indie artists like me, the small clubs, I'm confident they will reopen pretty soon. I mean, in Italy, I know they reopen movie theaters and theaters. They're not selling all the tickets, but you know, I don't know how that will go. We'll see. We have no idea, right? So we're waiting for a second wave. But I'm confident that the small clubs will reopen, you know, with limited seating. I personally, I'm starting to put out the word to restaurants to offer performances outside. And so I'm actually in contact with a few restaurants where basically I will, you know, perform outdoors in their space and help them, and they help me. It's kind of like a mutual marketing. and using social media. So the other big thing for me, for other people, maybe this was new, but I wasn't a big social media user, and now I do live streamings every week. I haven't performed as much as I've been during the lockdown. So, and I've been invited on other live streamings and TV shows on Zoom. And so there's been a lot of virtual performing going on, which I've been enjoying a great deal, more than I thought I would. So it's been a big surprise. And my idea is to actually, in the moment I will start performances as of now outdoors, I'll bring the live streaming with me, and so kind of show my audience what is been happening inside now outdoors with a live audience, and start creating something of interactive on both virtual world and live world.
What about Robert and David? What's upcoming for you guys?
I'll let David go first.
I'm lucky at being a writer. I can do a lot of my creative work outside of a performance venue, other than plays, of course. And so I have a couple of books that are available on Amazon and Kindle, and I have a new one that's ready to go. So I'm planning to release that. But doing these short videos for Slap and Tickle, the play that's on at Pride Plays right now, I got an idea about how to do a film version of the play. A very simple concept. So I think I'm going to explore that and see if maybe I can make a movie during this time.
Wonderful. And also we want to remind also that Rob stars in Slap and Tickle. Also,
that's
if
true.
you go on James Parr official YouTube, you can see the full segment, and it's so much fun. I love your contribution to Slap and Tickle.
Rob has a very long history with Slap.
I know. You and David are,
well, we can talk about that as well, but Slap and Tickle was nothing but born from creativity and this idea of why not? There's an opportunity there. Let's put on a show and let's do it. As far as where I am with the things that I'm doing now, actually David and I are attached on another project that we've had to hit an indefinite pause on. And it's just hard to say at this point what will happen with that, because the world has to be up and running to be able to put it up on a stage and get audience into the theater. I was also, my producing partner and I were involved in an off-Broadway show called Happy Birthday, Doug, that was written and performed by Drew Droege, which is on hiatus. Since it's a one-man show, I assume that will be able to open on the first part of whatever curve theater's able to start again. So there'll be that. As far as the Broadway Barfly, like I said, I did it really just to entertain myself, but I've had some ideas, and I've had some people message me with their ideas of what it might be. And similar to what Irina was saying, I've not really approached anyone, but I thought, well, I could take this into bars and restaurants that, once they're starting to open again, could use a little bit of extra something to get people in the door. And so I've been kicking around this idea of what it might look like as a 55-minute live presentation somewhere in a bar or a restaurant where they could serve the drinks as part of the presentation. And again, sort of a mutual, you help me get what I'm doing out there, and I help you sell drinks, while you have people in the room. It might be a book, it might be a little novelty book with some pictures and cocktail recipes and stories.
Yeah.
It might be, I haven't put it up on a YouTube channel or anything like that yet, because I want to clear some rights issues so I can use music and things like that. I didn't want to put that out there prematurely. So I don't know. Creativity will have to set in and point the direction.
I love it.
But I can say this: I'm not going to let it go at this point. I think it's proven in a very small way that people are interested in it, and I knew that not so much by the number of people who are watching it, but by the consistency of people who are watching it. That people make a point to watch every video and tell me that they did. So I thought that's it's not so much about how many followers, it's about how active they are in what you do.
Yeah.
And that's your strength. Your aficionados are the core audience that you will bring with you even when you become a superstar.
I don't know that there's a superstar waiting in bars.
I think it's a wonderful idea, and if you bring that in bars, definitely going to be one of the in the audience drinking. Yeah.
Was there another question to that? Did I say what you wanted to answer?
Absolutely. Yeah. I love see that the creativity is already flowing. I will also hope one day maybe all these you artists that contributed to Creativity Will Save Us will do something together. Or like Rob and David are already collaborative, and maybe also Irene, that would be wonderful. So have you seen how you can create new artistic concepts all together? I'm definitely looking forward to listen to Irene's music, reading David's books, and go, see a new Robert Dreameyer show, Broadway Barfly. Creativity Will Save Us. I think we're coming, we have a couple of more minutes here, but I wanted to first of all say thank you to all of you for the time you dedicated to us and to Creative Pois-On. And also the full Creativity Will Save Us Special Pride episode is online on our Creative Pois-On official YouTube channel. So if you guys like this conversation, you can go and watch this beautiful video. Tomorrow we're going to have another chat with some other protagonists from the video. And then, I don't know, is there anything else that you guys feel you want to share with us and with our audience? Just freely.
I have something to share. All our channels. So, audience, guys, all of you who are following us right now, remember to follow us at www.creativepoison without the O.com or on our Facebook page at Creative Pois-On, spelled Poison, or on our Instagram account at Creative Pois_on, spelled POIS_ON. I know we like complicated things, but thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. Is there anything else that you wanna share with us before closing?
If people are interested, I do this live streaming every Wednesday at 4:30 Eastern Time on Facebook and Instagram on my channels. You can look at my name. And for people who are interested in also hearing some Italian, I switch between English and Italian during the live streaming. It's a lot of fun. You can chat with me, and people request songs. It's a nice time.
It's a party.
It's a party.
Okay, so Robert and David, do you have anything else to share?
I'll say two things. One, for anybody watching, at Robert Dreameyer is Instagram, and you can see all the videos that I put up. If you want to follow and comment and give me your feedback, I'd love to hear it, since this is a new project. And secondly, now's the time. Don't let this COVID shutdown get the best of you. Use your time wisely. Like Irina said at the beginning, I've always kind of looked at this as a little bit of a gift, where time is stopped. So use it, fill it with something interesting.
Thank you. And David?
Yeah, find the silver linings wherever you can, and just explore your creativity. Don't let boredom get to your tedium. It's weird because it's tedium combined with anxiety, which I think is a combination we haven't really experienced to this level before. So make the best of it.
Thank you. I think it's beautiful closing. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon on our Creative Pois-On channels. And we usually end all of our shows with our tagline, which is, Daniela, it's ready. It's ready.
Ready?
Imagine. So
Set.
let's get it all together. Ready?
Ready?
Yes. Ready? Let's reset.
We need
Let's do it in rounds.
In this moment. You should give us a rhythm, because
That's right. 1, 2, 3.
Ready, set, imagine.
Yes.
Happy Pride.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Thank you.